You're not in the frame, Aaron.
Good.
Your
I
head
need
is
to be
like
there,
on the frame.
yeah.
There you go.
I like how you're just not at all
It's
patiently
backwards. Watch in the mirror.
waiting. Kyle, I want you to know.
I don't think it shows up backwards if people are watching.
Jesus fucking Christ. Hey, everyone.
100% intentional.
Welcome to Sleepy Nerd's first video.
Can you tell this is our first time
Yeah.
doing this?
That went exactly as I
I'm
hoped.
Kyle,
I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
and tonight,
We're sorry.
we're sorry
I'm not sorry.
for the previous
Should be.
podcast. We're
What
sorry
previous
for
podcast?
we're sorry for Aaron.
Whatever.
That's just like a blanket sorry for Aaron for everything we do.
Yeah, the future.
And
That's
in the
okay. Tonight, I have nothing to be sorry for. Every other podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
So
want to like cozy up. Like,
Yeah.
cozy up and edge mic up. So tonight we're gonna be completely topical. We're talking about Star Wars tonight.
Woo! Was that not hype enough?
I think we've
Jazz
represented
hands.
most of the internet opinions just in that reaction alone. People fucking hate Last Jedi.
No, it's
weird.
great.
It's good.
I don't think we have represented the internet's opinion because we all enjoyed it.
Yeah, that is true. But I think we talk about Star Wars in general tonight, like the direction of the new franchise, I guess, or the continuation, all the new stuff.
I just want to talk about the new movie.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
agree.
do.
Before we do, we just want to say spoilers going forward.
Oh,
Yeah,
obviously.
spoilers.
Spoilers.
If you're the
If-
5 people who haven't seen it, we're on Twitch. I feel all of you have seen it, unless
Yeah.
you're cool and hip
We're
and
on
haven't seen
Twitch
any
at
Star
like
Wars movies.
5 in the morning, of course.
Yeah,
If you're doing this with your life, then you've obviously had time to see Star Wars.
that is true. Sometimes some of us twice.
Brag about it.
Yeah. So who wants to start talking about it? I think we should address first. This is like
Should we address the porg in the room?
yeah.
Here,
No.
Should we address the giant boob blue milk alien in the room?
was it blue milk?
It looked like blue milk. I feel like it was a reference to blue milk.
I think
A
it was just
reference to
it just
blue
looked
milk.
like it was milk, but
It looked blue to me.
Yeah, it was sort of greenish blue.
it was red.
It was our
Tonight we find out
screens.
we're all colorblind.
Our screens had different quality of calibration. So
Oh man, I didn't tell either of you that. We saw it in 3D, and the first thing that came on that was like one of the trailers that was like, oh, put on your 3D glasses, was completely like out of sync. Like putting on your glasses did like nothing or made it like worse, and like everyone in the theater was just like. It was a really weird experience because no one was like, "Hey, it's not working," because we weren't in New
Everybody
York.
was just
Hey,
like, what?
yeah, it was just like this quiet, like, "Is this working for you? This isn't working for. Is this working for? Do they ask the person next to? Does they work?" And then they like got it back in sync, thankfully. But
getting back to no.
fuck me telling an anecdote, Jesus.
No, because it ties in about what I was gonna say. Like my theater is also like strangely dead the entire time, and I feel that's kind of my first thought. I'm like, people aren't responding to this movie well.
Yeah.
I think like that's what there's like kind of like the porg in the room. People seem to hate this fucking movie a lot.
I saw something today that there's a petition to not count it as canon.
By the people
I-
probably who still want to count like the old expanded universe as canon.
Probably.
Yeah.
But like, why? Like, regardless of your feelings of it, it happened. Like, it's canon. Just accept it and move on.
Yeah, like the prequels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like
Accept
deal
it
with
and
it.
move on.
There was nothing worse than the prequels in this movie, except for maybe like the casino scene, which was like on par with like the lamest parts of maybe like Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that was worse. I would say maybe on par.
That's not on
but-
par, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? Like, get the people in with what we didn't like.
Yeah, I mean, there was fewer things I didn't like than I liked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
Probably the biggest issue for me, besides like just the casino scene as a whole, was just like Finn and Rose's storyline.
Yeah,
It
you really had a problem with that. I didn't, but say why you did
I
first.
didn't much either.
it didn't go anywhere. Like Finn, to me, he was one of my favorite characters coming out of Force Awakens. I thought he was real interesting. It was like a thing we hadn't seen in the Star Wars movies before, which was like a sympathetic person that came from like the Empire. And I just thought he was a really funny character. He seemed like a new type of character in the franchise. I liked his story. And then in this movie, they sidelined him. Like, you know, he started the movie in a coma.
Sure. Well, I mean, he ended the movie.
And he ended the
last
first movie in a coma.
Yeah.
But so the problem was that he started the movie in a coma, and then was immediately kind of given this secret mission. And just by the nature of being a secret mission, like, no one else, like, really gave a shit what he was doing. And then he was with another new character that had to be introduced and have all these new things explained about them. And his mission didn't go anywhere. Because it ended up just being pointless anyway. Because all that happened was, Holdo, like, rammed the ship. So it didn't even matter. And then...
Okay, here's why I didn't mind that it didn't go anywhere. To me, it seemed like a fusion between fucking Force Awakens and Rogue One, and that it felt it wasn't like, here's our grand plan and we're going to pull it off perfectly, like New Hope style. It was more like, okay, well, we're scrambling because we're desperate and we're going to try this big plan, and like it doesn't go perfectly and they don't just easily win with it, and I was okay with that. And it's like there were multiple contingencies, and I liked that too, because if it had gone off, then it would have been like, oh well, either they would have said, okay, well, Holdo wasn't planning to do anything, like she had no plan, which is like, well, how did she get to that rank if she just couldn't make a plan? Or like, oh, well, I was going to do this big heroic move and abandon and sacrifice myself, but now I don't have to, so it doesn't matter. And then that would be like, well, why would you even introduce that? Well, so I was...
Finn did that, like, immediately after.
So I was fine with their plot line and it not being successful. I also was okay with it because the entire movie was about, like, killing your parent figures, and really that entire plot was just, like, a way to get him onto the same ship as Phasma.
I have
a question. Do we know what the time gap is from Force Awakens to Last Jedi? I would assume very little to none, correct?
I think very, very little, yeah.
So can we even say that Finn was in a coma? Can we just say he was unconscious for a couple days, at best?
How long do you have to be unconscious for it to be a coma?
Oh.
Do you need to, like, WebMD this? I mean, I feel like it's the kind of thing, like, because it's sci-fi, you know, healing bed, it's like, it's a coma. Like, by our medical standards, it would be a coma, but it's like, oh, well, it took him, like, a week to get out of it, or 3 days to get out of it, or whatever it took.
And why couldn't they just throw him in a back to tank?
That was sort of like, well, I don't know, I was like...
Boom, back to tank, out in a couple hours.
Is this the way that, like, medicine has advanced since then?
Since in like the 30 years?
Yeah, it was like...
30-year span?
That was like...
I mean, if Bacta is like the end-all cure, like, why would you need anything else?
I don't know, I did want... You're making faces. I did want...
I'm digressing, I'm sorry.
No, I wanted an explanation for that, or I wanted something, because to me, it would be weird if they're like, hey, we have this, you know, this medical procedure. It's been 30 years, but medicine just hasn't changed. Like, that would be weird. But also, like, it is sort of like, oh, we have this magical healing gel. It's like, okay, well...
But you don't need to progress past that.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, why wouldn't they use it then? Hey!
Hey, what's up?
Can't read the screen name from here.
Yeah, lots of X's. Snester. What's up?
Another thing, it's 2 movies in this new trilogy that have ended with a character in a coma.
Yes.
Finn in Force Awakens and Rose in this one.
She was awake, wasn't she?
No, she was injured.
She kissed him
She
and
was
then
injured.
passed out.
Okay, so that's what I... No, because she was in a scene later, because I thought when she, like, passed out, I definitely thought that was her dying. And I was like,
I did too.
I was like, oh, well, that was weird. And then later they showed her, like up and sitting with the rest of them, right?
No, they dragged her out. Finn dragged her into the base on, like, a sheet or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, she's hurt.
Yeah.
And then they got on the Falcon.
I thought she was sitting on the Falcon.
They put her on that bed that Chewie was laying in Force Awakens when he got shot, and Finn was trying to heal him. But she definitely looked like she was unconscious still.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it was just that I saw her body then, and I was like, oh, I guess she's not dead unless they're just lugging her body around. But
we've moved so far beyond the point I wanted to make.
Sorry.
Kyle, this isn't revolving around the point you wanted to make. We're just discussing the movie, but what's the point you wanted to make?
It was really the point I wanted to make. So, all right. We were talking about Finn's, like, this whole plan, how important it was or whatever. But, like, I feel like their plans weren't even important at all, because in the casino scene, once he was talking to Rose and she was like, oh, these are the people that did this, this, and this. And, like, yeah, like, let's bust this place up good. And then they released those animals, and then they did that unnecessary chase scene, and they were on the cliff, and it's like, hey, if we were able just to, like, bust up this place, it was worth it, because, like, they thought they were going to die. I'm like, was it worth it? Like, your original plan was to, like, save the remainder of the rebels to stop the First Order from just completely wiping out the Republic. And then, like, this was worth it just to, like, mess up a casino?
Well, I feel like it was
You
more
know-
like, if we're going to die, at least we screwed over some of these, like, rich warmongers, rather than, like, we died for literally nothing. Like, we didn't do our primary objective, but we got, like,
to me, it felt
something
like
else.
they did literally nothing.
I was listening to Kevin Smith talk about that scene yesterday because when he did his review, and it totally spaced out of my head until I heard him talk about it. But I feel like the whole point of that scene was to show the people that produce the weaponry. I have a feeling that that's going to be a big part going forward because they've never touched on that before. It's never been something in any movie that's been brought up. Like,
Yeah, I mean, and
I have a feeling that that's going to come back in some way.
I saw it twice, and I didn't mind as much, like, DJ's storyline of saying, like, hey, you know, there's all these other Benicio del Toro's characters.
Oh, okay. It's like, who?
I like that they brought in, you know, because the other Star Wars movies are so abstract. It was just, you know, like, the Empire and then, like, the Rebels.
Right, and that's it.
And then you never get anything, like, outside of that. So I like that they're trying to bring in, like, hey, you know, like, outside third parties make these weapons. Outside third parties, like, are affected by this. I like they're bringing that in, but I don't know. Every scene in the casino just felt so dumb to me. And so, like, ham-fisted.
Okay, going off of that, and another thing I didn't like, that whole storyline with Benicio del Toro, what was his name?
DJ.
Okay. His storyline was like, I felt like it, like, either, like, scenes got cut or there were rewrites or something, because it was like, oh, we're here for this master hacker, and then serendipitously we meet this other master hacker, and I was waiting for it to be like, oh, he was the guy all along, but there wasn't that reveal.
Yeah.
And then I was waiting for it to be like, oh, well, there's a reason he was here, like, he was, you know, a spy or something, but he wasn't. He just sort of, like, was a
I think he was
turncoat
just
in the
a
last
thief.
minute.
I mean,
Happened to be there at the right time.
but
he
he
just happened to be another codebreaker.
Yeah, he just happened to
Yeah.
be in the same cell, another codebreaker who was good enough to, like, break into this Empire ship, because that was the thing. There weren't, like, we can't just have any codebreaker. We need this fantastic, amazing, best codebreaker in the galaxy.
I do have a feeling that we'll see him again, but he'll have an interaction with Maz, and maybe it won't be so good. Because, like, Maz knows, like, everybody in the galaxy that's, like, a scoundrel. Like, and she'll, you know, Finn will contact Maz and be like, hey, we found this guy. You know anything about him? And she'll be like, oh, that motherfucker.
I hope
That
that's
was
her
the
exact
other-
line in there.
It seemed very weird for her contact to be this sort of, like, debonair guy at
But
the
that's the
craps
thing,
table
like-
or whatever. So, well, I was like, okay, so it's just going to be like, the DJ is actually the guy, and he's going to have some line about, like, oh, I lost my pin in a gambling, you know, it was the last thing I had to bet or whatever. But there was just, like, nothing. It was just, like, a very, like, coincidental meeting. So that was, like, I don't know, that was an unresolved plot line I didn't really like, or, like, just unexplained.
Yeah.
And I didn't, for the casino in general, like, just the whole, like, I've said this before to you guys, the whole aesthetic of it seemed just, like, off. The rest of the movie, to me, felt like Star Wars, and it felt like real Star Wars universe. That felt like they ran out of budget, or that it felt like one of those, like, Hollywood producer talks where they're like, okay, well, like, something like this, but not this, obviously. But it's like, it's a casino, and there's slot machines, and this guy thinks that BB-8's a slot machine, and it's crazy. But, like, not that, but something like that. And then they just did that.
I feel like, couldn't they, like, even make, like, the fucking tables float or something? Like,
Yeah, it was like, oh, and here's roulette. It has weird symbols on it. I was like, that's not like different enough, you know?
and there's like a bar with like a lot of like glass bottles and like nothing looked like weird. And I guess everything else you've seen in Star Wars is kind of like broken down and shitty because you don't ever see like the rich people in Star Wars. You only ever see like
the rebellion or
the rebellion or like everything on like crappy outer rim planets. You don't get to see like the nice
and, like,
shit.
Empire stuff, yeah.
Well, but like Empire stuff is just all industrial war
Like
stuff.
sterile.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Like,
But I
and
mean,
maybe,
that's its own aesthetic, and that I think they pull off well. So why couldn't they?
I think the only time we might have is in the prequels when they showed like the Senate stuff.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
that was kind of like higher class. But even then, like it was just like big meeting rooms and offices and
Well,
shit.
and I would say like a lot of the stuff with Padme is like her stuff is, you know, she's a queen.
But
so,
again, like even that stuff's just like offices and meeting rooms. Like you don't see like the luxurious.
Yeah,
side
or
of
again,
it.
like it's like, oh, she's a queen, but she's traveling to this like nowhere world, so
Yeah.
it's still kind of run down.
I don't know if this is just me and like I feel there's like the different like stratas of like Star Wars fans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just me, but whenever we're talking about Star Wars, like you guys bring up the prequels, it's like, oh yeah, there's 3 other movies where you see all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never think about the prequels when I think about comparing like this Star Wars to other Star Wars. I just think about like the original trilogy. My mind never even like touches.
It definitely comes up to me and like, okay, well, what else do we have to compare to? It doesn't come up to me of like, well, does it live up to the standard? It's like, no, does it live up to the standard of the original trilogy?
Yeah.
And then like prequel stuff is also like you can draw from.
The only
there,
2
but-
things I've thought about are like when Force Awakens came out, I'm like, all right, all this movie has to do is be better than the prequels, which it was. And then this movie, where I was watching it in the casino scene, and like this is like some dumb shit that would have been in Attack of the Clones or like maybe Phantom Menace.
I feel like that whole scene had just set up multiple things. Like it was there to introduce us to a few things. Like I said, the whole like industrial side where people like make the machines, introduced us to DJ, which I'm pretty sure we'll see again,
Yeah.
and then it also introduced us to the Jedi kid. Like
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like even though it was
I
small, like I feel like that scene was like the best time to introduce it.
I was okay with that scene happening. I was okay with them going to a casino. I just wasn't okay with how they pulled it off.
Yeah.
Like it felt like they did. It was just very like, oh, that's it. Like they even came in with that shot of the like ship that's like it looks like a boat and then it like goes over the waterfall.
Yeah.
And that you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then it cut to inside and it's like, oh, it's a casino.
Yeah. All right, moving beyond that, are there anything else you guys didn't?
No, the redeeming quality of the entire casino is those fox things were adorable.
The big horse things, you mean?
Yeah, the big like the giant, not the crystal foxes,
Okay.
but the giant.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, the giant long
There's
leg
the crystal
fennec
foxes
foxes.
and like the big horses.
They were both adorable, and I want both of them as actual pets.
Fair enough.
I really hope one of the crystal foxes snuck onto the falcon at the end.
That'd be great.
Porgs
And just starts eating porgs.
Porgs and foxes
Like,
together.
the Millennium Falcon probably doesn't like smell nice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
But I feel by episode 9 they're gonna have so many like cute like marketable animals on the ship. It's just gonna be fucking disgusting.
on that
What do you
ship you
think,
have Chewie, BB-8, 3PO, R2D2, Porgs, hopefully a crystal fox, like
What do you think crystal fox shit is like?
diamonds.
Yeah.
So do you think it's like you have
It's like Nibbler from Futurama.
it's just fuel,
yeah.
it's engine fuel. That's how they like refuel the rebel ship.
No,
Well, I guess the rebel
they
ship's
shit
gone.
kyber crystals.
That's what. Okay, so you know in this movie where Rey goes to Luke, and the end of Force Awakens is very dramatic, where she hands him the lightsaber, and I'm like, oh, does he take it? Does he not? And this movie, it's just a joke, and he like throws the lightsaber on his shoulder. In this movie, it ends with Leia. She's like, we have everything we need here to restart the rebellion. And this movie will start the same way, but it just cuts to like the
Pans
opposite
over.
shot, and it's just that little fox and like the shitting crystals on the floor, and she picks it
And
up.
they're like,
she's
"We're
oh,
rich!"
yeah.
Lightsaber.
Okay, maybe since you saw it twice, I'm like, I need a second rewatch because does Luke get to all 3 of his Jedi training lessons? Because he's like, I'm going to
Yes.
give you 3 lessons and I'm going to turn away. And does
Yes,
he?
I
I
think
definitely
so.
heard 2, and then I don't remember him giving a 3rd one. Or maybe it just like, I thought it was like part of 1 lesson, but it was 2. I need to rewatch it. Because I
So-
was like, is this like a Dagobah Yoda thing where it's like, oh, you need to stay here and finish
Yeah,
your training, and she's like, no, F you,
Yeah,
and
because the
leaves.
first one was the Force doesn't belong to the Jedi.
Right.
The second lesson was like legends are bullshit,
Yeah.
and like the legend of the Jedi is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so the first lesson was when he took her up to that rock,
Yeah,
right? Okay, so that was the first one. What was the second one?
was when they were in that room together with like that pool of water on the floor, and he's talking about like he's like, oh, Luke Skywalker, the legend. And,
Okay, so that wasn't like an actual like training thing. It was just like them talking. I
Yeah.
feel like I don't know. He never really said it, but I feel like it could have been the one with where they were fighting, maybe like right after she went into the cave and was talking to Kylo. I mean, I don't know. It could just be.
I don't know. It was another thing I was sort of waiting for them to call attention to. And
Are
they
you still
didn't.
watching this? Can you wiki if there is a 3rd lesson?
I don't think
we
there
still have
was. I think that he.
I don't think. I don't think anyone's there.
I don't think Luke learned the third lesson himself until Yoda came.
Maybe.
Because maybe that was the final lesson.
Do you think he was like, I have 3 lessons, and he's like, I hope I think of a 3rd lesson by the time.
No, I'm sure he had one.
She'll leave by 2.
I'm sure he had a 3rd lesson planned, but the 3rd lesson actually ended up being what Yoda told him.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm saying, like, what was his 3rd lesson he planned to give, and did he give it? I
Probably
also
not.
wondered if, like, at what point? No, it was the end of the first one where she, like, went into the, like, dark side pool thing, and he's like, you didn't even try to resist it.
Yeah.
Like, there was another moment like that where he sort of had a, like, I'm not even going to try and train you, like, moment. But then she sort of... Wait, was the 3rd one him revealing about, like, Kylo Ren and being like, I had the moment where I thought I was going to kill him, and then
I didn't, because I resented
Yeah.
myself for thinking
Well,
that.
that part happened during the 2nd lesson.
Did it?
That you got his first side of the story. Then when she had her moment with Kylo, where he's like, they were doing their like shirtless finger touching.
Please never say that again.
That's when he first told her that Luke tried to kill him, right?
That's when he said that,
Right.
yeah. Well, because he like teased it one time. He was just like, oh, has he like told you what happened between us? And that was one time. And then another time he was like, here's what happened. He tried to kill me. And then
Luke told
Before
her.
she
Right.
left, yeah, he finished off the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to see it again,
Yep, same.
clearly. Yeah, that's been bugging me, and I was like, I need to like ask someone. I need to see
I feel
it
like
again.
Last Jedi is so long. By the time it
really
ended,
is.
I forgot things that happened in the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie.
There were also like 5 different points where I was like, okay, this is where it's gonna end.
Yep.
Okay, this is where it's and I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna end on a cliffhanger, or like when they were like, okay, there's the planet, like we're gonna get to the planet. I was like, okay, it's gonna end. And then they got to the planet and they were like, okay, here's the base, but there's only one way in and the Empire's coming for us. I'm like, okay, so that'll be the cliffhanger. They'll pick up the next one.
I definitely knew that they were going to show some fight on that planet because it was all in
Yeah.
the trailers.
Oh.
But like,
I was for sure the movie was going to end with that shot of Luke framed by the door.
outside,
I'm like, it's going to end there.
outside the door, staring up at like the ATM sixes or whatever the hell those
Yeah.
things are called, the gorilla walkers.
The ATM too.
The gorilla walkers, because they had like the
They
walking
did.
on
They had
knuckles.
like the backwards elbow
Yeah.
thing.
But yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be the end there.
There were
But-
just so many points. Also, like, there's another, like, very minor, and I know it was necessary, but I still disliked it. The one soldier who I think was credited as salty, who just went, oh, it's salt. And that was his entire...
I'm pretty sure the soldier sitting next to him was Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you see the theory that James Corden was in it too? He was an X-wing pilot that blew up at the
Yeah.
beginning.
I saw
And
that.
Tom Hardy is a stormtrooper somewhere
I
in
saw
there.
that when I didn't see that was a theory. When I saw that, in the movie, I was like, is that James Corden, or does like every like fat white guy just this much of their face look the same to me?
It did look like him. But
It kind of,
also,
but I mean-
so there's stormtroopers that are also in there are Tom Hardy, Prince Harry, what's the other
They
one?
got cut out.
Did they?
Yeah, they're cut out of the movie.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they're still in
It's
there.
just been it.
Are they in the scene explaining like GJ's fucking deal?
I'm sure that there are tons of cameos just hidden as stormtroopers. I will never
There
find
is
out.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the movie.
Yeah.
He's the weird alien with the southern accent that's complaining about them parking on the beach.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was
also
a super weird accent.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was a weird, like, didn't fit how the character
You know,
looked.
if
and,
everyone in
like,
Star Wars is going to be British, there might as well be, like, weird country bumpkin
I mean,
accents.
yeah,
as
I'm
well.
fine with
also-
the country bumpkin. It just like felt like it was a weird like what is he? For me, it was like what accent is he trying to do? Like what
doesn't
are
matter. Star Wars. I also saw something that said that Mark Hamill might have done the voice of that little drunk leprechaun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
I know Warwick Davis is one of those weird little, like, casino
There are
creatures.
too many.
But,
There's so much.
All of this kind of comes back. Like, so this movie, I was surprised to see it was written and directed by Ryan Johnson. It wasn't, like, written by, like, a bunch of people, or at least we don't know.
Well,
like,
JJ
Yeah.
did that with Force Awakens, right? Didn't he write it and direct it?
I don't think he wrote and directed it.
Pretty
I
sure
think
he did.
had...
Dang it!
Dude, XX Snester, you're
They're
you're
no
giving
longer
me
here.
nothing,
They're-
dude.
I don't think they're here because it used to say one viewer and now it doesn't say that anymore.
where does it say
I'm
one
pretty sure
viewer?
they're gone. What?
Where did it say one viewer earlier?
In the like corner down.
Oh, no.
Oh no, we've lost Snickster.
Snicker.
That's how it's pronounced.
Where do you think we lost them? Like, at what point? Do you think they were here for like a second? America.
He wrote the
yeah.
comment and then left.
Pretty much. They were like, I have better things to do at
just
5
checking
a.m.
in, guys.
on a Wednesday morning.
That he's like a security guard for Twitch, and he's just like, okay.
Yeah,
Just checking on everything.
Just making sure you guys didn't kill yourself in suicide pact. That's all I got hired to do.
No one on the internet is hired to do that.
All right. It says produced, co-written, and directed by J.J. Abrams. So he co-wrote it.
Okay. So, like, this movie really felt like just one guy doing whatever the fuck he wanted with Star Wars. And that's, like, it's surprising to me that Disney, like, allowed that to... Because this movie, like, I get a lot of the criticism because it doesn't feel like a typical Star Wars movie. There's so many departures from, like, what I would expect Star Wars to do.
I'm okay with that, though.
I'm okay
I
with
like
that.
seeing different things in Star Wars. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many different parts of the Star Wars universe. I want to see it. Like, this was something different. I'm okay with that.
Here's where I'm conflicted, like, as a fan and as a person, is, like, a lot of the things I want to have faith in, basically. I want to be like, okay, they're clearly going somewhere with this, or they're setting something up with this, or they did this for, like, X symbolic reason. But I'm not sure if that's true, or if it's like Rian Johnson was like, hey, well, I didn't get to write the first one, so let me just, like, tie off some loose ends there and get rid of stuff I didn't like and introduce stuff that I did.
Definitely shit on The Force Awakens a lot.
Well, like, Snoke dying definitely felt like, I don't want that as a villain, so I'm just gonna, like...
That was another thing that Kevin Smith said when I was listening to him, like, the final shot of Force Awakens was Rey trying to give Luke the lightsaber, and then, like, that first time you see them, he just throws it off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big fuck you. And then, like you said, Snoke dying. Like, they built up Snoke to be this all-powerful bad guy. And then he just fucking gets
even within
Darth
the movie,
Mauled.
Yeah, even within the movie, he's like, I'm like, oh, he could be, like, a cool bad guy. He seemed very, like, like forceful and very, like... I liked his reveal of, like, yeah, I've been manipulating you two to be connected to the Force to, like, give you this, like... To essentially, like, trick you into coming here to think you were, like, important. I liked a lot of the stuff Snoke was doing. Yeah, like, for him to die, like...
I still don't think we've seen the last of him.
Well, okay, I liked him dying, and I liked that connection thing, because I felt that was very, like... That almost felt like they were broadcasting it too much of, like, oh, like, Rey and Kylo are going to be related, because they're, like, they have this mind... They literally cut from... like Luke and Leia connecting that way. They went straight from that to Kylo and Rey, and I was just like, okay, they got it. And then Snoke's like, nah, I was doing that. And I was like, that's a clever idea.
I had a friend that pointed out, like, she was like, no, it's a very meta moment, because it's like, he's like manipulating the audience too. It's like, you keep getting these like built up expectations of Rey being related, like, or being more important than she was.
Yeah.
Which also didn't bother, like, I know we're like bouncing back for a lot of ideas. It didn't bother me that like Rey just, is nothing or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like he was lying to her in who her parents were, but I do not feel like she's related to anybody. I also feel like that whole thing with that kid at the end, like using the Force to like grab the broom, just showed that like, hey, anybody can use the Force.
And that's why that's why I like that she comes from nothing, because like Anakin came from nothing, literally. Supposedly.
Literally, yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
like,
but I still think that Kylo Ren was lying to her about who her parents were. I just don't feel like she's anyway related to anybody.
I feel like, I don't know that he was lying. I felt like he didn't, I felt like he was lying about like, oh, I saw your past, I saw who your parents were. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think it's necessarily true he like knew that they were nothing.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's...
That.
Yeah, he was saying that, and I think that might as well be true. Like,
but she's the one that said her parents are nothing. He's like, he's like, say it, and she goes, yeah, they're nothing. He goes,
right.
Yeah, they did this, and she's like, yeah.
Yeah, but he could have also been putting that in her head.
But he said before when she's like, I saw your future, he's like, well, I saw your past, I saw who your parents were, and then she's like, tell me, and that's when he was like, no, you know. So that was like, I feel like, I mean, he wasn't going to be like, fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi was your dad. Yeah. Like, he was going to be like, yeah, your parents were nothing. But he's like, you know.
I'm also glad that, if they keep going to that, she's from nothing, because no answer would have been satisfactory.
Yeah.
Like, if they were like, oh, Obi-Wan's your father, that would have pissed everyone off. They're like, oh, you're related to, like, Palpatine. That would have pissed everyone off.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made, like, a few people happy, and then it would have, like, enraged everyone more. And the last thing we need is, like, more enraged Star Wars fans.
No. Like I said, I definitely think that her parents are more than just, like, junkers or whatever. But I don't think she's related to anybody from the original
I
trilogy.
hope not.
I do feel like Finn is, though, because I feel like they have to tie it back somehow. Especially, like, I still think that he's Lando's son or grandson or something. Not because they're
not because they're the only two black people in the universe,
because they're not. But because of what Phasma says to him when they're fighting, she's like, "You've always been scum." I'm like, well, people always call Lando scum. And the First Order gets their stormtroopers by kidnapping kids when they're babies. So he wouldn't have any memory of his parents.
I don't know, I feel like Force Awakens, it's kind of like taught me to not look into anything anyone says in Star Wars. It's just like, okay, it's all like, they're just not going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
That's like
so
also,
much of this movie was just about throwing shit away.
Well, yeah. Also, it's like the state of like the world and the movie industry right now. I also am like, okay, that could be setting something up. Also, I don't know, like Rian Johnson could like just be fired tomorrow, and it's like we have a new writer and director for the next 18 movies. And it's like, okay, and yeah, well, and then it would be like, all right, all the stuff that he set up also doesn't matter and is going to change. So even if it's like, okay, they clearly laid this out in Last Jedi, and it's all pointing towards here, and he's like, yeah, you're right, that's exactly what I'm doing. It could still change tomorrow.
That's the problem with not having the same director/writer for the whole three.
Yeah.
I think going from JJ to Rian Johnson back to JJ is going to be an issue. Because unless they actually sit down and communicate with one another and say, hey, this is what I had in mind.
I mean, I'm sure they're going to.
I don't think they did, considering how much it looked like Rian Johnson kind of shit on The Force Awakens here. Like,
it was loving, though.
Yeah, but like J.J. Abrams built up all this stuff like Snoke. And
I
all
don't
this
think
other
he should.
stuff.
I just think they were like so reactionary to Force Awakens, because when Force Awakens came out, I feel like everyone liked that movie when it came out.
Yeah.
And now the thing is to like, well, yeah, now everyone hates that movie. And they're like, well, it was too much like this, too much like that. And they're like, hey, can you do the exact fucking opposite what J.J. Abrams did? And he's like,
make it
okay,
totally
cool.
different.
And now I feel like they're gonna just like be like, oh shit, no one liked that either. What are we gonna
Maybe
do?
go back.
I don't know that what they did was like, oh, it'd be the opposite. The tone I got more of it wasn't like, oh, well, fuck Force Awakens. It was more like, fuck the fans and what they think. You know, fuck everyone who's just going to go online and say that they hate this for whatever reason. You know, they're going to find a reason no matter what. So it's just like, you know what? We're going to make the kind of movie we want to make, and it'll be fun, and we'll do what we want, and that's what it'll be. And, like, you can say whatever you want. That was sort of the vibe I got from it. Like, the first scene with Poe, it's like, that was great. And I can see them being like, yeah, people are going to hate this. They're going to think this is super dumb, and, like, especially to open on this. But it was very just like, yeah, like,
Rian Johnson,
screw you.
he had, like, he released a really cool statement on Twitter where he was, you know, he's gotten, like, death threats over this.
Yeah.
Of course.
And fandom.
Yeah.
I miss when being a fan of things meant that you liked it.
Right?
That never happened.
But,
No,
like,
Fake news. Fake news.
Back in the day.
Rian Johnson was like, you know, he's like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but, you know, first with this movie, I have to be, like, a director and a writer. And he's like, I told a story I wanted to tell, and he's like, you can't please the fans. Like, you can't write a story just to please fans. He's like, this is just not going to be good. You can't please every single fan. You can't give them every single fan what they want. Yeah. And I'm glad that they didn't.
Have a 6-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you have a 6-hour movie,
jam everything in there,
and you'd have like a pandering movie that like, because you ask fans what they want, like, oh, I want like a fucking like cool Luke like bouncing all over the place and killing like 9,000 stormtroopers with a lightsaber. Like that'd been dumb.
We did get a cool Luke though in a way.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Like I thought Luke was great.
I knew something was up with that the second he walked out. I'm like, his beard's a different color. What the fuck?
Well, I was like, they were like, there's only one entrance, and they showed up in the base. I was like, okay, and then they're like halfway through that battle, they're like, oh, the foxes are only getting out like through this collapsed tunnel, and I'm like, and how did Luke get in there? So,
but I'm like, when did he get just for Jedi?
It was like an open
something?
tunnel, and Luke just like collapses. He's like, I'm gonna kill all these rebels.
It's like, did they have like just for Jedi hair coloring or something out there? It's like, and then like once he stepped out,
Pork juice.
Yeah.
and then he rang out a pork.
And then once he stepped out of the door, and I saw the lightsaber on his hip, and I'm like, something's iffy here.
Okay, guys, embarrassing confession. Like I say, I like sort of like I knew something was up during that and everything, and then like he disappeared, or they showed him concentrating, whatever the fuck, and I was just like, okay, I get what's going on. It took me like a full day after seeing the movie to get why the dice disappeared. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I remembered he was the one who brought them in.
Yeah.
Because I was like, How
they were
did
never really there.
what did like I thought that like Leia had brought them in or something, and then like he like Kylo like picks them up and they disappear. I was like, what?
Everything starts disappearing around him, and he like fucking wakes up in like one of the Matrix pods.
That was
Like,
an
sudden
interesting
crossover.
That was an interesting thing with the dice. Like I saw something that says that we'll probably see those in the Han Solo movie because they're the dice that Han wins the Falcon with. That would be interesting. But it was interesting that Luke gave them to Leia, and then I'm assuming once he disappeared, they disappeared from her hand or something. But
Well,
did
I guess she dropped them because they were on the floor.
But how
when
could
we
she
picked
drop them if they
Well, that was
weren't
the other
real?
thing. She could touch them though. So is that like they're related? Because the whole
Well,
like
she's
fight
also
scene.
force sensitive too. But
the
like,
second,
Right.
the second time I watched the movie is when he hands her the dice. She her eyes can like widen. She like looks up. I think that's the moment she realizes that he's like not actually there.
And maybe like she can't.
And I think that's why she
feel
leaves
them.
him behind. Like it doesn't matter. Like, yeah.
I mean, but then are they like? Do they exist just according to normal physics as Luke understands them? Because he's no longer like thinking about them, but he brought them in, and they, she like if she drops them, they didn't just hang in the air; they fell.
yeah.
So
that's the thing.
who's
Or was it the fact that she knew that they weren't there and then just left, but Luke still projected them onto the floor?
I'm gonna
for
tell you
Kylo
the
to see
secret
Mm-hmm.
why they needed that to happen is so they could have a dramatic moment of Kylo picking up the dice and have him disappear.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's the only reason. There's no good reason. There's no like explainable
Yeah.
reason for it.
Well,
They just needed a dramatic moment of Kylo picking up the dice.
Well, I was gonna say,
Look-
do you
Yeah.
feel? I feel like that Luke was still, before he became one with the Force, he was still projecting the dice there because he knew Kylo would go into the base.
But his projection of himself disappeared before the dice.
But
Right.
he didn't know.
No.
I don't think so. I
Yes.
think did they?
Yes.
When
Well,
he was
because
on Octo?
he had to.
That's the last time you see Kylo in the movie. So yeah.
Well, because
So-
he disappears while they're still like facing off. He disappears in front of them, right?
But he doesn't disappear from the planet.
No, okay. So
No. I'm just saying his projection of himself that faced off against Kylo, that disappeared.
Right.
Then Kylo went inside, found the dice, so they were still
Right.
there, but he wasn't. But he was still on the rock.
Right.
And
so
then
I'm
he
saying.
disappeared.
So I'm saying
after.
is he still projects the dice.
Right.
The
So
dice,
he was like,
the
I'm
dice
he
going
disappeared
to.
before the dice disappeared.
Luke did
Yes.
Yeah.
from
Because
Crate, or,
he
like-
disappears as
He didn't-
Rey and Leia are boarding the Millennium Falcon,
Uh-huh.
and then and then the Millennium Falcon door closes and flies off, and then he finds the dice.
and then Luke disappears.
No,
And then Luke
disappeared
dies.
before that.
Okay, so it
Okay,
goes.
stop.
they-
Not disappears, dies is what you're
Okay,
talking
so they go
about.
on the Falcon. Luke dies.
Mhm.
Kylo finds the dice.
Yes.
Okay, so that could have
No,
been
no,
that
no,
could
no,
have
no,
happened
no.
at the same time. Like they just
Yes.
showed it.
Oh yeah.
They just showed, Luke before, Luke first, and then the dice disappearing. But they could have happened at the same time.
Sure.
That's the problem with stuff like that. It's like they
That was-
could be happening at the
it's-
same time, but you see them one
Right,
before the
but
other.
what's weird to me is that he's like stops projecting himself, but is like, yeah,
That's a
but
lot of work.
the dice are still there.
But they're
he-
smaller. They don't take as much energy.
I guess, but he was like collapsed,
he
passed out on the
was
floor.
dying.
Kyle, you're looking at no one, Kyle. Okay. So like,
But-
I feel like we've done a lot of like meta analysis of this. I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about something plot wise.
Yeah.
I feel like Kyle's not going to like this
Hold
discussion.
on, real quick before we get past this.
Okay.
I do like that whole fight scene. They made it like they pushed in your face like, okay, Luke looks totally different. He's got the old lightsaber. He's
Mm-hmm.
not making footprints, and Kylo couldn't notice that because he was so blinded
consumed,
by
yeah.
his rage. So I just thought that was like a cool like, oh shit.
Air quotes for. Anyway.
Shut up.
I thought that was cool too. I thought they did a lot of like good setup of that. Okay. So in this one, Yoda is like over the Jedi way.
Mhm.
He's, I guess, come to that realization since trying to train Luke and now. So in like 40 years or whatever. Is that correct? Here's the thing.
What do you mean?
He was
Is-
like Luke in Empire. He's like Empire. Yes. He's like Luke isn't, ready, like he's too impulsive or whatever. And then he's like, you need to stay here and finish your training. And Luke's like, no, I need to go save Han and Leia. And he rushes off, and that's when he's like, he'll never like be a Jedi. If he hadn't gone off to save Han and Leia, Kylo Ren would never have been born. and Luke would have stayed, and like they would have died, and he would have gone on to defeat the Emperor and like probably still redeem Darth Vader. Then the Empire would have fallen, and like without a new like Jedi apprentice, the First Order may never have risen up. This is my
That's not true. Because
maybe. I mean, like
the First Order was still going to rise because it was the Emperor's contingency plan.
This is where I don't know.
The
all the backstory.
Kylo Ren would not have been around to form and lead the Knights of Ren, but like you heard what Luke said. He said that Ben left when he destroyed the temple, and
with a handful of students.
With a handful of students.
So I presume we're the only Knights of Ren.
Well,
right.
Yeah,
so there still would have
like...
been like the dark apprentices that Snoke may have just found and led.
Yeah, maybe he would have just like taken that. I'm like, but would he like if Luke had still like opened up his little like Jedi training school? I mean, would he have had the experience to like keep them from turning to the dark side, or would he have just like raised them, or they just wouldn't have had a leader, so they would have been like malcontent but never like became anything? Or I don't know. I was just thinking about this and I thought it was interesting.
I don't even think Luke would have like, had he stayed and like become like a Jedi like according to like how Yoda wanted him to. I don't even think he would have defeated like Darth Vader or the Emperor or anything, because the old Jedi way is so much about like detachment and like not giving things, and Luke was like he wanted to save Darth Vader in the end. You know what I mean? Yep. So. I mean, that's what all these movies,
Well, I mean, he wanted to save, like, Han and Leia, too.
Yeah.
But if you assume he went to that place of, like, complete detachment and, like, Zen or whatever, then would he have just been like, okay, I'm just going to behead Darth Vader and behead the Emperor and, like...
Doesn't matter. Somebody would have eventually come along.
I think that
manipulate the dark side.
That final fight between, like... I don't know. It's so driven by emotion anyway, but...
If Also, though, if he went to that complete place of, like, detachment, maybe he never would have, like, tried to train any new Jedi and then would have been the last Jedi. And...
No one's watching.
Shut up. And, like, that really just would have been the end then. I don't know. It was just something I was thinking about.
That was another big theme of, like, this movie. Is like, even though Luke was so detached from the Force and he shut himself off and he didn't connect and he didn't know all the stuff that was going on, there were still people that were... accessing the Force. Like, there's always going to be people that can connect to the Force, whether they're trained as a Jedi or not. Like, we saw that with the kid who grabbed the broom, like, and Rey. Like, there's always going to be a light side and a dark side of the Force, regardless of who's accessing it, and it'll always be there. It just it never goes away. Like, the Jedi could be dead, the Sith could be dead. There will still be people that could access. The Force.
Really like that. I know you said we're trying to like move away from like meta commentary in the movie, but I really like that about this movie too, where it's the first time within the films you see something of the Force beyond, telling people what you want them to do and them doing it and lifting rocks. And even though we got the lifting rocks part in this movie and we got the telling people what to do in the other movie, I like that this movie actually showed you, like, what the Force is supposed to be, like, the connective tissue between all these living things and how people relate. I really liked, the them showing, like, how the dark side kind of works. Where it's not necessarily as, like, weird, scary, like evil place. It's just like it's almost like a place of like self-reflection and like selfishness, I guess.
That was just like the cave on Dagobah when Luke
Yeah.
was fighting Darth Vader, but he was really fighting himself. Like that was like the thing with Rey where she was looking in the mirror.
I really liked that entire scene. That scene gave me a lot of anxiety.
That whole scene
like
where
the finger snapping, I was like, please stop.
What do you think she came out of that thinking?
That she was completely alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what she tells Kylo. She tells Kylo, she's like, I came here looking for answers. I've gotten none, and now I feel more alone than I've ever felt. And I think that's what drove her to finally have that connection with Kylo Ren, where he's like, well, I'll help you.
Yeah.
She was looking for help, and I think she was looking for help in any place she can get it. And I think she was so full of hope that she's like, yeah, I'm gonna like obviously flip this guy. So, because really, if you think about it, like in the movie. Luke's like the big legend with a connection to the Force. The only other person that she knows for sure has a connection to the Force is Kylo.
Yeah.
And then they quite literally have like a connection. So.
I know. I think... I don't know, I just lost my train of thought.
I like that whole scene where Luke was explaining the Force to her. Like, he was like, it's... what do you see? Like life and death, and she was describing like the polar opposites.
And live porks and dead porks.
She was describing like the polar opposites, and I'm like, that's what the Force is. Like, there's balance, and then that whole like that that mural in the water, where it's like basically their version of the yin and yang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the Force. You can't have one without the other. Like, and they
I like that too. It was again like it was the opposite to the way the prequels went, where they're like, oh no, it's just midichlorians in the bloodstream, and that's all.
the
Force
midichlorians.
sensitivity is.
Well, that's what it allows you to. Because that enhances your connection to the Force, but the Force is
I
just
know,
what's
but I'm
always
saying,
around
but
you.
that I know.
Yeah,
I'm saying
sorry.
the way that they introduced it in the prequels was just like, oh, this is what it is, and here's the explanation for it. Not like there was no aspect of it that was like, here's what it means and here's the philosophy. It was just like
Things that could have made this movie worse, and people are bitching about it being like so terrible and like worse than the prequels. If he's like, well, what is the Force? He's like, oh, it allows you to control people and move rocks. He's like, that's not what the Force at all. Every line that Simpsons is wrong. The Force is tiny bugs that live in your bloodstream.
I was actually expecting him to like reference that in his like that speech. I was expecting him to say something. And I was like, I wonder if they're going to touch on that or if they're just like ignoring.
And what else would have been like way worse is instead of Yoda, if Hayden Christensen as Anakin showed up, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, burn that shit to the ground, man. It's covered in sand. I hate that shit.
I was really wondering if they were gonna somehow CGI Obi-Wan into there, but I'm like, that I don't know if that would work.
I hope episode 9 just has like every single dead Jedi just hanging out with
Mace
Kylo
Windu
Ren
and
annoying him. He's like just brushing his teeth.
It's just
like
like the,
Fisto's like, hey.
it's just like the scene in Mulan with all the ancestors. It's like all the Jedi from the council.
That'd be great.
That would be great.
I'm
Have you seen?
so-
Hold on. One thing before we get too far away from midichlorians. Have you seen that theory that's like midichlorians aren't like what give you Force sensitivity? It's like a byproduct of Force sensitivity. That's like. I like that this is like a explain away the prequels kind of thing. As like, it's not that like, oh, he has midichlorians, therefore he can like, he's more powerful with the Force. But like, if you have more Force, you like produce this bacteria or whatever, and they test for that. It's like a
Gross.
pregnancy test where it's like testing the chemical in your
Should have
penis.
had like
that's
all the
how
Jedi
they-
like, just like pee on lightsabers.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that how
They
they
peed on
test
the crystals
kids?
and then they put it in their lightsaber.
Yeah.
Isn't that how they would test like babies to determine their Force
They make 'em pee on
sensitivity?
stuff?
No, they would like take a sample of their blood and be like, okay, well, this kid is not like. I think people would bring kids to the Jedi Temple. And be like, my kid is Force sensitive, and they would test the blood and be like, sorry, he's just another ditch digger.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here. Because like
I
if
think
a
that's
baby,
exactly what happened.
Sell him to Watto.
because if a baby is like. If the baby's like a month old, obviously they can't like lift rocks right away. So the Jedi would test the blood. Like, midichlorians are still a thing. It's just a different way of detecting Force sensitivity. But what I was going to say is I was so glad that they brought the puppet back for Yoda. And
Right.
didn't go like the stupid CGI route.
I was really happy too. I loved
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. When they showed his ears, I was like,
I was completely taken off guard of that.
yeah, I was not expecting that at all.
You see that? I guess John Boyega is doing press in Australia on the 13th of December. And I guess like with a reporter live, she's like, oh, it's so cool to see Yoda back too on like live TV. He's like, you can't say that. He's like, you're spoiling the movie. And he just like couldn't continue the interview because he was so like distraught. I like John Boyega.
He's so cool.
He's great.
I just keep thinking about how angry I am at this movie. Just like sidelined him.
Oh.
I don't know.
I'm glad that we got to see some more Poe stuff. He was one of my favorite characters.
That was
in
great.
Force Awakens.
Same.
Considering that he was supposed to
Well,
die in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
he was also weirdly sidelined in Force Awakens.
Well, that's
I
what he was
thought-
supposed to
Yeah.
die.
Well, yeah, but
I'm
it
glad
was-
that they fixed that for this one.
I
I mean,
mean-
he turned out to be a bit of an asshole, but like, worth it.
But that's cool. I like they're showing his like character growth. It's like he's a hot shot. Like everyone says to his face, like, yeah, you're a young hot shot pilot, like over and over and over again. And I like that you see him like slowly taking over that leadership role, and that like you even see like Leia giving him looks like he's got it. You know what I mean? I like that.
Well, and I felt like it was very Star Wars, and it was very this new trilogy, that he was like making mistakes, and that he was not just a good guy always doing the right thing. That when he's just like, why don't you have a plan? Why are you loading the shuttles or whatever? It's like, no, you're like being an asshole, and she has a plan, and you
Yeah.
like should have just followed orders. But like,
More people listen to Laura Dern, and then
yeah.
Jurassic Park would have never happened.
So it was. I like that, and I mean, the entire movie was about like, oh, it's like this black or white decision, and it's like, no, it's not. It's more complex than that. So I like that it was more complex than like, well, is he right or is Laura Dern, right? Like,
Lord
Men create the
Dern.
Republic. Burns out. Women Republic.
also, what was up with her, like, character design? They were like, okay, she's going to be an admiral, purple hair.
Ryan Johnson's a gigantic anime fan,
But, like,
and he allowed a lot of anime influence in the movie.
He couldn't give Leia purple hair.
I think
alright?
it's
So he
kind
had
of,
to give some
like,
women a
even
power.
like the shot of the hyperspace ramming of Snoke's ship was like I
That
felt
was so
that was
cool.
one really
That looked
cool,
great,
but I felt
yeah.
like that was like super anime influenced.
Absolutely.
look, I'm okay with that. I think if that's what you're doing, if you're leaning into an anime influence, crazier hair. It was like she didn't have crazy hair, she just had purple hair. It was just
Yeah, but,
purple
like-
and it was kind of wavy. It's like, okay, do crazy like fucking Sailor Moon, but like Star Wars is all about crazy hair.
But that's the thing, like, in the Star Wars universe, that could have been her natural hair color.
Well, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying from a character design standpoint, it was like, okay, all these like basically normal looking humans and then aliens and then one human with purple hair. So it was like, okay, well, is she an alien and her hair is naturally purple? Is she a human and she just likes having purple hair? It was like, just do. It seemed like the Casino. It was like a very half finished thought where it was like, oh, let's make her look crazy. How? Purple hair and, oh, what's going on over there? And then we just never get back to this thing. What's that face for?
Are people in Star Wars humans?
They
No,
never
but
really
I
say. They never really say that they're human. I think in like some of the old like video games, like I think like Knights of the Old Republic, or no, some of like the MMOs where you can like create your own character. They identify them as human, but now that that's all wiped away, I don't
Okay,
know.
if it's not, if it's not a crossover with The Matrix where Kylo Ren wakes up, can it be a crossover with the new terrible Alien movies where in the last one they come to Earth and they're the first humans that like start?
They're the engineers. Yeah,
Yeah,
Xenomorphs are Disney princesses now.
that's true.
that's true. Disney Queen.
Disney.
Yeah, but not okay. The
There's a Disney
queen
thing, but
is
she gives birth to the
yeah.
xenomorphs, and they're all princesses.
Are they all
So there's-
female?
sure.
Did you just assume a xenomorph's gender?
I mean,
You
if we're gonna
piece
talk
of
about like sexual symbolism in the Alien franchise, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the aliens really just have like penises for heads and they have like vagina mouths.
I
So
was gonna say they definitely have vaginas for head.
at a college professor, and we had a horror movie class, and I
It's just all vagina talk all the
yeah,
time.
no, it really was. It was just something like
That's
the
all
Alien
horror movies are.
It was all the Alien franchise, and she's like, penis head, vagina mouth, penis head, vagina mouth.
Just like
And that
for
was like a
15
whole
minutes.
thing. Yeah, it was like a really weird, like it was the weirdest
That's
haka I've ever seen in my life.
Sounds great.
I think we need to end on
So-
that note.
No, I think we
No,
need to end
Okay.
tangentially if we're talking about like Disney properties and Disney princes and princesses. One of you was saying earlier that like Finn is going to be really. I think you were saying Finn's going to be related to someone. He could be a Disney prince, abducted at birth. I may have read this in a fan fiction.
Aaron.
Finn turns out to be a prince, happily ever after.
Yeah, he's the Prince of Cloud City.
Great.
That's not racist.
What if wait? What if he's the Prince of Cloud City? Sorry, but he's not at all related to Lando. Is that better?
No, that's
What
worse.
if Lando shows up in the movie, and Ray's like, "Oh, are you two like?" Oh,
Yes, son, have a Colt 45.
Do we want
That
to?
might have been a little racist.
Vanessa, cut that out. Wait, shit.
oh no!
Ah,
Do we want
It's an
to?
actual ad. YouTube it.
Do we want to like have a moment of silence for Admiral Akbar?
I was mad about that. Not really, but I
Aaron
was like,
unceremoniously killed him.
huh?
It was pretty ceremonious. Pretty big explosion.
They were like, "Well, Akbar's dead." Like, all right, cool.
Speaking of, to go back to things we didn't like about the movie, Leia floating through space, like
That was a little,
you
that
know,
was a little dumb and weird.
It was weird, but I'm okay with it because
Yeah.
we finally get to see her use her force ability.
Yeah.
on that front, I was totally okay with it. I'm glad to see that because there are still people like to this day arguing like Leia isn't force sensitive, and it's
When
like,
she
what
clearly
movies are
is,
you watching?
like,
Yeah,
she
like-
was all the way back in at least in Empire.
Yeah, so, which
She
is
sensed Luke. Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I'm glad we saw her get to use that, but that was just a weird like she's been floating in space for an indeterminate amount of time. Could have been seconds. Could have been
I
minutes.
think it was just seconds.
And she's weird like Frosty, and then she's like. It
Well, I
was-
think it's cool that they're finally showing like other aspects of the Force besides like lightning
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
the
Just
Force
pushing
choke.
shit and lifting
Yeah,
rocks.
like it's cool they're showing other aspects of the Force and the way other people use the Force. So
Because that's the thing, like, there have been people that have used the Force to stay alive for hundreds of years.
Dude, I
George
feel
Lucas.
like Walt Disney
No, he's
Did-
just frozen. He's frozen in carbonite in
by
the tower.
the Force.
No,
Did
carbonite.
they? Did they? I feel like they might have explained this in the prequels, but it's been so long since I watched them. Is the lightning an exclusively dark side power? Is that like someone on the good side of the Force can never use lightning? Because we only
No.
ever see evil people use it.
Right, but you also only ever see evil people use Force choke, but anybody could do it.
Yeah, I feel like there's no like positive use for a Force choke.
Kyle,
Kyle!
stop kink shaming Jedi.
No, I don't.
Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan definitely Force choked each
I
other at some
think-
point.
I think
Go on.
lightning might be.
I also read that fanfiction.
But you could also say that Yoda used Force lighting when he set the tree on fire indirectly.
That's true.
So I don't know. I guess it just depends.
I feel like that was more of a like that
Command
wasn't
over nature type deal.
Yeah.
yeah,
It
like an
also-
otherworldly like ghost power.
It
more
also
than it was
depends on the
Force power.
training because like Sidious could use it and Dooku could use it.
Mm-hmm.
Vader couldn't. Darth Maul couldn't.
Yeah, it's a weird. It's like you have to reach a certain level of evilness.
I think it just
But it
depends
doesn't
on
even-
the character, the preference.
It's
because,
very like Azula from Last Airbender
But,
to
like-
me, or it's like just like oh, they have lightning power because they're that evil, I
yeah.
guess. And
But like Dooku wasn't a Sith for that long, and he did it. Like he could have just be like, "Oh, my
it's
master
not
does
about
that. I
time,
want
it's
to do
about
it."
How evil you are.
No, well, he even wasn't that evil. I mean, you could argue that it was just like
He killed
it's
a
just
lot
what
of porgs.
it's just what he wanted to like. It's just the skill set that they wanted to develop. Like, oh, my master could do it. I better learn
That's
how to do
something.
it.
It's like the geek in me sort of wants an explanation, but also I don't because it would be just like dumb however they explained it. But
Mm-hmm.
it is just like, what decides who can be like, do these aren't the droids you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
or who can do the lightning, or who can force choke people? Is it just like I'm going to practice this one skill? Is it the amount of power you have? Hey,
Yay!
Luke
Cool,
dies, by the way.
thanks.
Cool, thanks.
you got one beer. So
We know.
it is like what
Well, join the party, man. Thanks.
do we ever see?
Kyle, you're going to alienate our one viewer.
Does Luke
Good.
ever like brainwipe anyone? Do the like these aren't the
Mind trick?
droids? Yeah.
Jabba's.
Yeah, in Jabba's palace.
Oh, okay.
Bib Fortuna.
Yep.
Tries to do it on Jabba. Doesn't work.
Well, we definitely see people like try that and it's not successful,
Yeah.
and we see people try it and succeed. So it is another like is it just like practice makes perfect or
No, it also
On-
depends on the mental fortitude of the person.
Okay, then along those lines, also like I feel like in Force Awakens we were definitely led to believe Rey did not have any like inkling of her Force sensitivity until like in Maz's place. Like she didn't know. Maybe she had
Yeah, I feel
young wizard like weird
I
things
was
happening.
thinking
but-
about this the other day. It seems like the test or like the tell-all sign that
Mm-hmm.
somebody is force sensitive is that they're a kick-ass pilot.
Sure,
Like
sure.
fucking Anakin's flying pod racers, Luke is
Han,
bullseyeing,
Han wasn't Force sensitive though.
but just out of nowhere is what I'm saying. Like
Oh, yeah.
Luke's bullseyeing
true.
womp rats in his T-16, and then he blows up the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Rey can just miraculously fly the Millennium Falcon after never going in it before.
It's just like being Force sensitive just makes you really like detail oriented.
it just makes you very aware of your surroundings, and it
Yeah.
allows you to like feel like, oh shit, I'm gonna get shot at by like from the right side at a 45-degree angle
Mm-hmm.
in 2 seconds. I need to cut my ignition and like do a backflip.
Have you seen that? This like a tangent of a tangent. Have you seen that one clip of like the baseball player who's like getting interviewed and someone like throws the ball from behind, he turns around. Do you think he was Force sensitive?
Fake.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay, so here's what I was trying to ask before. No. Here's what I was trying to ask before that.
Just kidding.
So she didn't have any clue that we see that she was Force sensitive until that moment.
Damn, dude.
The guy, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
get
do
to
that.
that in 1 second. Ghetto scientist.
What do you write?
Then
I can't read it from here.
we'll read it in a second. The
Okay.
kid like pulls the broom over, so
Uh-huh.
he clearly both knows that he has the Force and like can control it to some extent at like age 10 or whatever.
It also,
But
I guess,
they're also like, Luke is like, oh, I've never felt so much power from Rey since like Ben. Is this kid the most powerful fucking Jedi in the world, or does it just manifest in different ways?
Yes, it depends on their willingness to accept it. Like Rey just didn't know anything about it for the longest time, and then once she opened herself up to it, it's just like. But like this kid that uses it to get the broom has been like, it's like, okay, I have this ability, let me start using it in like small doses.
Because he
like,
was also like, woo, Luke Skywalker. So,
he doesn't use it around his friends or his master because like he'd probably get his ass beat. But like when he's by himself to make his chores easier,
right? Very like Merlin.
Yeah.
So to answer Ghetto Scientist's question,
you said, what do you guys feel about the way Snoke died? I was a bit disappointed because he was built up to be a powerful person.
Agreed. You start if you want to.
Okay, well, we mentioned this before, but I don't think that we're done seeing Snoke. I think we'll see him again. I think the way that he died was an interesting turn of events, but I don't think we've seen the last of him.
I liked the scene a lot. I thought it was really cool. I do think they built him up a lot. I think J.J. Abrams probably had different ideas for him. I think Rian Johnson just thought Kylo Ren was a more interesting, developed villain. I think like Snoke's just a type of villain we've seen before. He's another kind of like Emperor Sidious, like Dooku, even like like I'm gonna like rule the galaxy bad guy. Kylo Ren just wants to like burn it all down and start over. And I agree. I think it's disappointing that they built Snoke up so much for it to just have him die. But I think it was important to have Kylo Ren kill him in the way he did, and I think Kylo Ren will be a more interesting villain going forward.
I agree with that. I definitely thought like the scene where like how he died was cool. I did think it was like a little like weird with like how powerful he was built up to be and how he was shown to be, that he was like only had this vague idea of like, oh, he like turns the lightsaber towards his true enemy and turns it on. It was like, really? That's as much detail as you can get from that? But I'm also okay with like moving on from a more one-dimensional villain, and like I feel like I would have been disappointed if this trilogy just went, oh, there's an evil emperor and his powerful apprentice, and then in the second movie there's a weird twist, and then the third movie, the hero overthrows him and converts the apprentice to the light side. It would have been like, okay, cool, I saw that, like I didn't see it 40 years ago, but it's existed for that long. And I think I agree that it's like more interesting to see that like fall immediately and be like, oh, where's this going to go with this guy who just wants to start an entirely new system, but then abandons that to become powerful. And
well, I think episode 9 will be interesting if it's like, they're setting up like, I'm surprised Hux has survived for 2 movies now, like traumatic explosions. I think it'll be interesting to see a third movie with a villain that is very emotional and driven by like his emotions and anger and this like weird duality. And then his second in command, obviously once him out of the way, is very systematic and wants things to like formally kind of be like rank and file. Like I like that. I think that'll be an interesting kind of duality too.
To go back to our everyone's related conversation, sorry, this might be something you have an answer for though. Who do you think Hux is going to be related to?
Nobody.
Really?
I think he's I think he's one of the random kids that was kidnapped as a child.
Yeah, Mike and the other redheads of the galaxy, because they should be related.
Wow, God.
Anyway, I was trying to say is if Snoke does end up being the Emperor, how great would it be that he's killed again by like a Skywalker weapon, like in a way, because like he's got such like a hard on for the Skywalker family, and he's fucking killed by Anakin's lightsaber after all that time. After all that time, like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
still think
I don't think he's the Emperor.
I still think it. And until they actually come out and say
grew 2 feet. And
the Emperor has been known to clone himself.
You've been known to clone yourself.
So that could have just been like, oh shit, this clone got fucked up. Or like it was the last clone, or like it was like survived like an explosion or something. I don't know.
All right, Ghetto Scientist, thanks for watching. I hope we answered your question if you're still here.
They're still there.
Oh, cool, good. Well,
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we've been talking for about an hour. We're going to upload this video to our Facebook channel and YouTube. So if you want to check out the beginning where we talk about more stuff.
And it'll be on Twitch too, right?
Yeah, and it'll be on Twitch. So check us out. We're on Facebook, iTunes, everything else like that good stuff. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.